Liminal Traces, it's our second show on our series of shows that we do in November that are usually residencies. And I delve personally into the concept of the show with the artist, the development of it, and the whole creation of the pieces. We work together, we start a dialogue, and we manage to create really, really interesting collaboration. The whole concept of these November shows, it's always working with what could be called landscape, without strictly being so, but it's definitely landscape inspired. It's inspired greatly in Navaja, and it's either an artist residency with local artists, or we bring them over from other parts of the world. So for this show, we got together with Steven and Ana Paula. They are very different artists in many ways. So for me, it was very interesting to get them together. It would be an interesting collaboration. They didn't see it too much at the beginning. We started working and filling in the patches, trying to get around the edges. But the finishing result speaks volumes about how interesting it is to exchange your opinion and open yourself to being changed by the perception of a very different artist with a very different approach and a very different curriculum and age. So that's basically what Liminal Traces is about.
Yo empecé con acuarelas cuando tenía 3 años y fue como uno de los descubrimientos más grandes en mi vida, porque fue como lo primero que yo sentí que era mío, a nivel emocional y a nivel de la personalidad de ambos. Como que descubrí algo lo que realmente me gustaba y que además me di cuenta que era buena porque practicaba y era muy constante. Fue para mí como, ok, me agarro de esto y no lo quiero dejar nunca. No tuve mucho apoyo y fue un poco complicado intentar convencer no solamente a mi familia, a amigos también. Lo que yo estaba haciendo no tenía que ser correcto, simplemente tenía que serme feliz. Cuando estás haciendo algo que hace levantarte todos los días, porque es tu propósito, porque así lo sientes, se te van a abrir 2 puertas. Para mí esta exhibición es muy importante porque es descubrir una fase nueva, una seria, con un poco de colores que transmiten los pasos. Quiero encontrar mi paz, ver con claridad todos los cosas por los que he pasado y creo que estoy aquí.
I've been working with clay for probably 30 years. Originally, I just started with it because, to be honest, I had to go do a class with my mom so that she would get out of the house. But I found out that I loved it. I was lucky enough to take my first classes from a Japanese potter living in the United States. And ended up being an apprentice for him for 4 years, Hiroshi Tsuyoshi. And the more that I worked with clay, I ended up feeling very connected. Not only the amazing material it is, but the fact that it lasts so long and that is literally like degraded rocks. It is almost like a microcosm of our surroundings. And when we work with it and we fire it, we return it to that permanent state, which is why in archaeology, one of the main things they always look at is the pottery, because that's the thing that we make that lasts.
Últimamente estoy trabajando por 2 medios completamente diferentes. La acuarela que me ha seguido por de 8 años y recientemente he estado trabajando con lo opuesto, que es el yeso. La acuarela es muy sensible, es muy delicada, es transparente, el yeso es todo lo opuesto, ¿no? El yeso es un medio que tiene mucho volumen, que tiene mucha textura, que puedes crear 1000 cosas. Entonces siempre quise ver cómo podía juntar un medio con el otro y a través de explorar el yeso me di cuenta que no es tan diferente como el de la acuarela, de hecho, porque con el yeso puedes igual crear diferentes capas y con la acuarela igual para llegar al final de la obra.
I've always been interested in using clay for something a little more than just the utilitarian, the functional aspects of it, although I absolutely love designing and making dinnerware and things that people could use. I find there's a lot of value to that. But for the same reason that I always interested in historical pottery and the nature of the material because of the duration of it, working with that idea of making something that could be found at some point down the road, hundreds of years, thousands of years, who knows, people having to guess at what it was.
Creo que las cosas que me gustan se reflejan mucho en mi obra, porque soy una persona muy tranquila, mi naturaleza es muy tranquila. Me gusta leer, Me gustan los atardeceres, me gusta sentarme a tomar un café, me encanta tener interacciones con personas. Puede ser de 1 minuto, 2 horas. Me encanta poder conocer que cada relación es diferente y cuando se conecta. Creo que esa es una parte muy importante para lo que yo hago, ¿no? Que es algo muy personal, pero he aprendido a transmitirlo a mi trabajo. Y para mí es muy obvio lo que yo quiero decir, pero tal vez para otra persona es completamente diferente y eso es lo que a mí al final me hace sentir completa.
A lot of the pieces are really kind of, the form and the materials are very inspired by the natural world that I find myself in, and currently here in Baja. But I also want to leave some sort of evidence of thoughtful human action in the piece. And I've started to basically draw or scribe lines that I'm trying to emphasize by bringing in other colors that are outside of the palette of the overall piece. As much as anything, just to leave that little clue, that trace of an individual human acting on his or her world is kind of the idea that I'm touching on. It's been a really important thing for me it's really always kind of gotten to my core as far as thinking about myself and how I fit in with the rest of the world.
Cuando yo estoy jugando con el yeso, cuando estoy jugando con las espátulas, con el pincel, y algo no sale como yo lo quiero, ha sido un proceso un poco de aprender a desenredar y aceptar. Por ejemplo, en estas obras han habido muchas grietas por el material que estoy utilizando y he aprendido a hacer una paz con ellas. Están ahí, algunas se pueden cubrir, algunas se pueden divulgar, algunas se pueden esconder y hay otras que no, y está bien. Es como con nosotros. También tenemos muchas grietas y hay unas que son muy grandes, no se pueden cerrar, hay algunas que sí, pero se pueden trabajar y se pueden aceptar. Entonces, creo que esa es la relación que yo he estado trabajando con cada una de las piezas de esta exhibición.
I've lived in Todos Santos in Baja Sur off and on since 2005. I had always wanted to open a ceramic studio, a larger one that could provide myself with a platform to make whatever I wanted, and also to provide a space where other ceramic artists could come to and work. So I founded Baja Sur 3 years ago, right in the middle of the pandemic. It was my COVID project, and it's really grown a lot more than I even expected. We probably have 30 or 40 different artists who work through here or are helped by us. With my production team, we're doing a lot of functional work, which is one of my first loves with ceramics, and we're making quite a lot of dinnerware, lighting, and things like that for interior designers, hotels, restaurants, and private individuals. And Barasur has also given me a place to really be able to explore my own ideas for fine art, sculpture, and just exploring whatever I want to do with ceramics.
Yo trabajo todo el tiempo sola, ¿no? A pesar de que estoy trabajando, colaborando con diseñadores y estoy con el cliente, no es el mismo que trabajar por la de un artista o de un galerista. Ese acercamiento en persona es para mí como muy especial, porque nunca lo había compartido. Para mí ha sido como, que no estoy sola.
When Galeria Ginocchio first approached me about potentially showing some of the work, possibly inspired by the direction that I'd taken for my piece in Art Baja. Initially, we talked about a couple different ways that it could possibly be part of their programming. I think the more we talked about where the work was coming from, the more kind of an idea of sort of an abstracted landscape and just a sort of the expression of an individual artist reacting to it really kind of coalesced into an idea that Luciano wanted me to explore. Rather than something that I've done a lot before, which is be part of a group show like El Patio, or simply present my own work in its entirety or by itself, we talked about actually developing kind of a conversation about the concepts that I was interested in, and that another artist, Ana Paula, who's a fantastic watercolorist and painter, was also kind of exploring this idea of these. He was seeing abstracted landscapes in both of our work.
I remember the first time we were just sitting there for hours, looking at each other, looking at Steve's work, and Ana Paula was just writing stuff down, and we were just talking concepts, we were reading books. Steven brought out some very interesting Japanese books for concept, and Paula brought some of her own. We just sat there for hours and hours talking and going back and forth on how or why are we saying what we're saying. And then a second time, a bit further down the line, where we're sitting at Ana Paula's, and literally it was really hot that day, and we just decided to, sit down and floor and jam it out again. I ended up laying on the floor, and then Ana Paula was just like walking around, and Steven was just like mingling with some ceramics. And then something really cool happened, that we stopped talking about the show. We stepped out of the technical and we stepped into the more personal realm, which was the objective all along, but it's like a door you have to crack open. Yeah. So we suddenly spontaneously got there. I don't know if it was a sheen or if it was just the amount of hours that we put into it. And it was really beautiful because we started talking about ourselves, and we realized that all three of us were going through a very clear transition phase. And that's when we started narrowing it down to liminal traces. Once we got to liminal traces, we read some of the possible descriptions for this set of words. We're just, this is it. And I think that's one of my favorite things that happened for the show.
It's been really interesting to go into the concept of a show where it's not just work that I'm making or how it fits into a much larger curatorial approach. It really is a conversation between two artists, and I guess Luciano is moderating it, is in one way you could look at it. So to find an idea of mine that fits with an idea of Ana Paula's and follow it to a place where it says something similar, and we're talking in a way really back and forth about these ideas that, at least for me, are a part of every person's life, whether they conceive of them that way or not. Just that liminal space in between us and the world is what I'm exploring, and I think she is as well. So it's been eye-opening and really, really invigorating to play in that world.
One of the main things behind the concept of the November shows in general is landscape. So I try to show the pieces, install them, and mount them with the idea of creating different angles to see different landscapes. And one of the other things that we talked about a lot in the handstand with Ana Paula and Steven, it's on how the ceramics that he created, for example, are some of them very anthropomorphical. So it was an interesting game of them being vessels, but also creatures, something else maybe. The whole trip behind this, it was distributing them throughout the space, and while you walk through the gallery, you can perceive how they react to each piece that's on the wall by Ana Paula, and how do they react with each other. Well, that's gravely what I had in mind for this show when I was mounting it.
The way the show was put together at home was done with a lot of care. I thought that not really changed my perception of the work, but I really understood it. It felt really strong. Sometimes you'll go to 2, 3, 4 person shows, something like that, and it feels sort of disparate, that like maybe there's not a connection. And this was not at all like that. This felt very well curated and well directed. It just showed the strength of my work and of Ana Paula's in a way that was complementary. I loved it.
Ay, creo que fue una experiencia muy interesante, sobre todo porque nosotros hemos trabajado durante esta exhibición por meses como equipo y ha sido un proceso muy interno y muy personal, y no habíamos involucrado como tal en público. En la temática o en las conversaciones que nosotros hemos tenido, siempre lo llevamos como con una línea en conjunto, ¿no? Pero era muy privado, y Cuando la gente entró a la galería y empezó a ver las piezas y empezó a crear conexiones y darnos su punto de vista, expresarme cómo se sentían, qué les hacía sentir las obras, la verdad fue muy especial.
I thought the turnout was great. It seemed like there were people not only in the gallery but interested in the work. I was really happy with that. It seemed to pique a lot of curiosity for people. There was a lot of questions about process, about just the technical aspects of how I made the pieces. It was clear that some people weren't really sure what they were looking at, and then some people definitely knew something about clay and ceramic art. And some of them were really wanting to go kind of in depth on what they were seeing. The pieces maybe felt a little mysterious, or there was something about them that caused them to want to know not really what they meant, but kind of what I was thinking or what I was kind of exploring when I did them outside of the specific technical aspects of how I was working with the material. So that to me was really interesting. And so I was really, really happy with the opening. I thought it was really well done and well received.
The interaction with the public during the exhibition itself was really, really nice. I mean, a lot of people showed up since the very beginning and they just kept showing up. We had a great amount of people very interested. I mean, there you can see how loved these both artists are by their community. That was really good to see and feel. The whole vibe, the whole ambiance was imbued with that. You could really feel that. Like, a lot of people were here to see them, to see their pieces. That's spectacular. And we also got, of course, friends and collectors that always support us and come to the shows. All of them were really intrigued by a piece in particular, either one piece by Ana Paula or one piece by Steven. It was very interesting to see that people really, really interacted and wanted to know more. I mean, they read the text, they saw the trials, the tests, and still they were craving for more information or knowledge about what's behind the piece. And I think this is also due to the amount of work that we all three put together into the conceptualization. So the interaction was really amazing. We learned a lot from the pieces. Even Ana Paula and Steven got a lot back from their pieces, from people and their perception. To have the whole place, the installation of the complete series, and then people delving into it and exploring it in this very passionate and intimate way, it was really something.
Lo que más me llamó la atención cuando la gente interactuaba con las piezas era que la mayoría lo transmitían a un nivel emocional. No lo veían tanto como un landscape, sino como el reflejo de emociones, o de caminos, o de destino. Esas eran las cosas que más resaltaban, del destino, caminos que se interlazaban y el reflejo de emociones y cómo expresarse.
The other thing that I think is that the idea of this being sort of a landscape show, even though none of these pieces are specifically landscapes, at least not in the Western way of thinking, I think was apparent to people. And I think that idea did come across. People kind of got, ocean and movement and land, and there's obvious references in a lot of my pieces to stratigraphy and erosion and passage of time, and people got that without having to be told that. And that to me, I felt was a big success.
What really surprises me is that how you really, when you get to talk so much with them and be so much with them, share all of things, the processes, the ups and downs of the creation. It's surprising how you really get and understand the show or the pieces or the work way better, in a way deeper manner. This is also why I wanted this record of how and what we did, because it's important. It's important for people to see what's behind the art. A lot of people understand this and perceive this without the need of an explanation, but it's always good to share. That's why also we had in the show the wall with the post studies and the processes and the color palettes. I think that's really what surprises me every time, how interesting it is to delve deep into the creation with a creator. It's really what I like about my job, to see what's behind this.